On today's show, we're talking some recap. We have gotten through the first weekend of the NCAA tournament. We're also going to be talking Sweet 16, who we like to win a championship, and all things tournament. So if you missed the tournament, climb up under your rock. I don't know what you've been doing, but this is the show to listen to. So tune in. Without further ado, start the show. Welcome to episode of Sitting Courtside. Today is Tuesday, March 26th, and congratulations, America. Your bracket has been busted.
That is definitely for sure. At least in my case, all my brackets are busted, and I know at least yours from the podcast from
Definitely
last
from the
weekend is
show.
definitely
Yes, we are about as dead can be with the
yeah.
podcast bracket.
And shout out to those who did join our podcast bracket. I'll just get to that right off the top. Currently in first, we have Drake Whaley, Drizzy's KP. That is the name of their bracket at 480 points in a three-way tie with Alyssa Myers and Crystal Clifton. So we all know Crystal on the podcast, but also Alyssa Myers and Drake. Thanks for joining the group. We didn't have as many as normal, but it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
But we'll give you guys updates, and remember to reach out on Twitter for your whoever does win for their prize pack.
Yeah. I think hot take that less people did the brackets this year.
Yeah, I agree. It was hard to get to like the 20 for like the full group thing on our other side too. All right. Well, if you didn't watch, I don't know what you were doing this last 4 days of college basketball. Absolutely amazing, of course. I this Monday rivals Super Bowl Monday for me. I always feel like absolute garbage by the time we reach this Monday.
Yes.
But it was a great weekend of basketball. All kinds of crazy finishes, good games, bad games, a lot of offense in some games and no offense in others. But just a quick recap of what the conferences did. The Big East only had three teams in, all three of them into the Sweet 16. They are 6-0. The ACC, all of their teams that actually should have made the tournament won. They're 8-0. But they had the one Virginia loss, but we shouldn't really count that because they shouldn't count the tournament.
No, they don't count.
And maybe committee was right, or maybe just because of the bad seeding, these teams all failed. But again, we're to the second weekend of March Madness, and the Mountain West only has San Diego State left. So there's the only of the five teams that made it from the Mountain West. Only San Diego State remains.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm heartbroken, Kyle. Why would you bring that up? I just gotten through it.
And we're gonna do the recap in a bit of a different way. There's way too many games to recap. Like it would. How many games is that? 32 plus. I think there's
too many.
48 games to recap. So we're not gonna do it that way. We're going to do it more of like an award style. So you'll see what we mean by as we go through it. But hopefully this gets us to talk about a lot of different games, and hopefully we have some different answers.
Yep.
So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the most exciting game of the weekend. What did you have here for the most exciting game of the weekend?
All right. I'm just going to preface everyone that me and Kyle probably would have had 95% of the same things. So I purposely chose things that were not the common thing.
Okay.
So for me, most exciting game, any game that featured Colorado.
Okay.
All three of their games were electric games. You had to watch them. They went down to the end. You thought one team was going to win, then the other team would storm back. Colorado is by far the team of the tournament. I know they're gone. It's disappointing, but they were about as exciting as you can have.
And right off the bat, we're already talking the same language here because I also have a Colorado game. I didn't say all the Colorado games, but I chose one of them. All three of them were great, as you mentioned, but I chose the Colorado versus Florida one because it was 102 to 100 in regulation. We didn't even have overtime. Yes. And we got 100 to 102. We had a last-second winner. I think they scored with 0.7 left. Colorado, absolutely very fun team to watch, especially for, I'm assuming a lot of America didn't watch them throughout the season. 3 NBA players. They had to win the Pac-12 to get in, or get to the Pac-12 final to get in. Absolutely crazy game here. 102-100 over Florida. And just think what it could have been for Florida had their center not broken their leg in that last game.
I'm telling you right now, I think they'd be the team in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I think
they were so good.
Yep. And they could definitely compete with Marquette, seeing they would have had the larger team and just as good of offense too. I mean, they scored 100 points 3 of their last 5 games of the season, and that was without their center for 2 of those. So. All right. I think most people have an easy answer for this one, but what's your favorite upset so far of the tournament?
Nice. So I had Sanford over Kansas. Oh wait, sorry. Referee
Yeah.
save Kansas on
We
that
got
one. My
screwed
bad.
on that one.
My bad. Forgot. I forgot when you block a basketball and the player falls hard, that's a foul, even if you
Yeah.
get all ball. So my bad. Yeah, but it has to be Oakland, right?
Yeah.
I think that does. I mean, that has to be Oakland.
Yeah, there's really only two options. It's either the Auburn game or the Oakland game. And when you take down Big Blue Nation in round one, and do you know how to say his name? The guy that went off for 1,000,000 threes for
Oh,
Oakland.
Grukel.
I don't know.
I feel like I say it correctly when I see it, but I don't know.
Okay.
Who
Well,
cares?
anyway,
The
he was
guy with
absolutely
male pattern baldness. I can't say that apparently. Sheesh.
In his 6th year of college.
Yeah.
Yeah, hit 37 or he shot 37 threes in 2 games. He hit 10 against Kentucky, and it was absolutely amazing seeing John Calipari not switch up his defense once the entire game. He was just like, "Nope, I don't care if you're hitting threes."
Yeah. We'll talk about that later.
Okay. All right, we'll start with our good beats and betting before we get to the bad beat. Do you want to go first?
Do you want to do a game that broke the bracket?
Oh, yes. Game that broke the bracket. I did skip over that one.
Sorry. So Yale over Auburn, obvious for the show. Like that one was, they just crippled me for the show. However, the other one that I will throw out will be Duquesne over BYU.
Yep, I agree with that one.
That one absolutely killed me.
No one didn't see it coming at all. We never even really gave him a chance, Duquesne, when we went through it in the podcast.
Yeah, and I feel dumb now because I switched up my strategy for the weekend, which is when me and you both caught on fire. Kudos to us. If you didn't follow the picks, you're poor.
Yeah.
If you follow the picks, you're very rich right now. How did we not call out that Duquesne had a top 30 defense? And my lights are going crazy.
I think that was just an oversight from a couple guys that really just didn't care about Duquesne at all at any point.
Yeah, I seen that. I'm like, holy crap, they have like a really good defense.
Yeah, I just completely missed that one. But
that's
the
all
one
right.
that obviously the Kentucky loss and the Auburn loss broke a lot of brackets. But the one that hurt me the most because I had so much hope going into after their first game, Grand Canyon. I was on them for the Sweet 16 in all of my brackets, and they looked great against who was in the first round? St. Mary's. They looked great against St. Mary's. Yep. And then they just did the dumbest thing possible. They tried to play Alabama style. Like they decided not to run offense or anything and just run up and down and shoot one-on-one threes.
Well, it almost worked until it didn't.
Yeah, until it didn't work. Yeah. They were in the game. But that was because Alabama was playing like garbage as well. So
okay. Now we're doing beats.
Okay, yes.
Worst beat by far. Oakland, NC State. I had the under in that game. Easily had the under. I mean, easily. It was under 147. Overtime killed me. Absolutely.
That's brutal.
Brutal. I mean, I was on a heater until that game.
Yeah. As Jordan mentioned, we had a hell of Saturday and Sundays. Like we did absolutely amazing betting. But the worst beat I had was on, I think it was Thursday night or Friday night. It was one of the night in the first rounds. I had Nevada in a 3-team boosted parlay. So if you don't know, like these boosted parlays, you can get them really high if you pick like some underdogs. So I had Oregon, Nevada, Gonzaga -3. It was a plus 965 parlay. The only part I needed was Nevada up 17 with 7 minutes left. And he just always finds a way to screw me, Steve Alford.
I was going to say.
Absolutely pathetic. And I was so mad at myself watching that collapse going, why did I make not only the straight up bet, why did I put them in a parlay too? Like, what was I thinking?
Kyle, I think that's where you tried to go on, you know what, this makes sense. Where I always go off of grudges.
Yeah.
I would have never had Nevada if I were you. No. Not a chance I would have ever had them in there. But I think that this is a good starting point for me to launch something for you. I think moving on forever and ever, Steve Alford and all schools he touches just have to be eternally dead to you.
Yeah, I think they do. I think you're completely correct.
Like next year, we talk about the Mountain West. We're going to be like, oh, there's 10 teams. You're going to be like, there's 10 teams?
Yeah.
I only can count 9.
Yeah.
You know, like that's
there's no way I could go that far. Yeah. No, I completely agree. Because even going into the bracket, there was only like 2 teams they could possibly play in the first round where I was going to pick Nevada. Of course, they got one of them.
Yes.
And then so I picked them in every single bracket, and then I bet on them. It's just so stupid.
Yeah.
All right, but what's the good beat? You had to have a good one with how good we did.
I think you need to agree with me on this one because it was by far the sweatiest last 2.5 minutes.
Okay.
So we took the halftime under of 160 and a half in the
yeah.
Colorado Marquette game. They needed to score total together as two teams 5 points with 2 minutes and 7 seconds left.
Yeah,
How they did not go over that total is beyond me.
Uh-huh.
Like we got so lucky. Colorado misses a 3. Marquette doesn't hit their free throw on the 1-on-1. Then Colorado, I don't know. This is another thing. For whatever reason, teams under like a minute and a half forgot that they're supposed to go fast.
Yeah.
They like took their time and used the shot clock. Then Marquette hits their free throws, and we end up still short by 3 points. It was amazing. I don't know how we did that.
No, so I'll be honest. I left the restaurant about the halfway through the second half, and I was like, "That one's toast too." Like already, the overall game under was toast, and I was like, "This one's toast too." Turn it back on once I get home, and I'm like, 5 minutes left. I think they only need like 10 total points. It's like there's no way this hits, and then you just watch as everything breaks completely correct with that last 2 minutes.
I couldn't believe my eyes. I actually had like kind of moved on with life. I was like, "Well, this stinks."
Yeah. Well, so I had two really fun beats. Like these are ones that were like one was really profitable, the other one was just lucky. Janelle Davis, if you watched the game against Michigan State, awesome first half. 13 points. I had him over 17.5 for the game. I think that this one's easy, you know. He doesn't score again until late in the second half. He gets bailed out because he walks the ball up at the end of the game, so they don't get a game-winning shot. So it has to go to overtime. He still only has 17 points all of overtime. But with 20 seconds left, they're down like 11. He gets a wide open layup because no one's playing defense. And it's like that was the luckiest over by far. And then this one wasn't really lucky. I just had one hell of a parlay. $4.27 parlay, all in these money lines. Utah State, Grand Canyon, and JMU. Cash for over $100.
I just love when people say like, yeah, this parlay with like $3.18. Like when it's like just the most obscure amount.
It's always whatever like cents are left. Like you pick your dollar amount and then whatever cents left on your account. So.
See, I always go the oppo of that, where it's like I have $2.21, and I'm like, I'll bet my $2, and then I'll take my 21 cents, and I'll bet that on something too.
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah. All right, let's move it on to the next one where I have MVP of the tournament so far. I went with Jermaine Couisnard, absolutely elite game against South Carolina, 40 points, career high. And then as part of Oregon decided we're going to play 2-on-5 against Creighton. He was one of the two guys. He scored 32 points for the tournament, averaging 35, 6, and 5. Obviously, his tournament is done, but he was the guy that impressed me the most just from being absolutely on fire all weekend.
Yeah. So I put Kolek for Marquette. I don't think they win that game against Colorado without him. The things he was doing. Even my wife was like, how are they not stopping this kid? Like, he wasn't even like he was like going full bore. Yeah. And he still was somehow finding space, getting shots. Like it looked like he was just playing a different game than Colorado. And quite frankly, the reason I gave it to him also is we know what this Marquette team looks like without him. Yeah, I don't know if they win the first round game without him either. And that's saying a lot. So for me, I think he's been the most valuable player to his team. Yep, not the most impressive, but definitely the most valuable.
Yep, and definitely has a good shot if of winning like the player of the tournament too. Like if Marquette makes a run here to the Final Four, it's going to be because of him. Like they can't really rely on Jones at the end as much as they can Kolek. So.
Yeah, not to spoil anything, but this is my thoughts. Like the winner of them and Duke is extremely live.
Yeah, well,
for the Final Four.
So Duke's got to get there hopefully. So.
Yeah. Same.
All right. Yeah. All right. Best coaching performance of the tournament.
I'm going off script here. I think no one's gonna know who this is, so I literally had to put the school down too, just so everyone knows.
Okay.
All right. We're gonna do. Okay. I'm gonna say his name. I'm gonna pause for 3 seconds. Everyone in their car is gonna yell that they know what the school is, and then I'm gonna say no, you're wrong, and then tell you what the school is. So my best coach thus far is gonna be Brad Brunell.
Okay.
You're wrong. He coaches at Clemson. Yeah. I know that's shocking coming from me, right? A guy that says I can't watch Clemson. You're right. I can't watch Clemson. That doesn't mean they're a bad basketball team. I just can't watch them. That doesn't make sense. No one in America had them picked to win their first game. No one definitely had them making it to the second weekend. What he did was nothing short of a miracle.
Yeah.
So give a man his flowers when he deserves them. He's going to get knocked out in the next round probably, but that's fine. No one else deserves it though, because everyone else that's left, quite frankly, you already expected them to be there. So I'm going to give his flowers now. Good job, Brad.
Yeah, very impressed by him. We'll talk about them when we talk about teams I was the most wrong about. But
Okay.
so for my best coaching performance, I would actually went kind of just with kind of took a little bit of liberty with this one. I picked Mark Few at Gonzaga. He ran complete circles around Will Wade in the first game over McNeese. They won by 21 in that game. Then he absolutely crushed Bill Self with another 21-point win. He's now got his team. I know this is not more than just a tournament now. This is his 9th straight Sweet 16. He's got this team playing better than they have played the entire season this last month. So I've just been very impressed by Mark Few and seeing the two coaches that he had to go against in the first two games. Yes, both teams not nearly as good as Gonzaga, but he's been really damn good at coaching for what's been nearly a decade now. So
funny enough, that was actually my first thought was him. And then I was like, but Clemson. So we would have had the same coach. That would have been awkward.
All right. I think we all know where mine's going here. So I'll lead this one off of worst coaching performance of the tournament. Steve Alford. He sucks in March. We all know he sucks in March.
Okay.
Going up against a brutal offense in Dayton. You're up 17 with 7 minutes left, and you find a way to only score 4 points the rest of the game. And you go home with 2 timeouts left. Yeah. You're just a terrible coach. Other nominations I had Calipari and Bryce Drew, but we've talked about them already.
So. All right, fair enough. I don't think Bryce Drew necessarily, but Calipari, absolutely. Kudos to you, Dylan, for finally catching on that it's a joke.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was gonna put Calipari, but then there was a guy that just absolutely takes the cake. Worst coach on earth. You can't say these things. You can think these things. You cannot say these things. Bill Self.
Yeah.
Holy shit, man. You just got the fucking brakes pumped on you, and you have the audacity to say that you've only been thinking about next season for the last month?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You can't say that. Yeah. You are the worst coach on earth. You have confirmed everything I have said about that state over there with that stupid bird that thinks they're cool with chalk and rock. They are, I think, eternally dead to me after the way they have performed just so lacklusterly and have zero culture, zero drive. And then to have those comments, the apple is always rotten from the core. He's the core. He needs to be gone.
I agree with it. He can't say that. You cannot say that after. Not when you're the preseason #1, where you have Dickinson on your team. You just can't say that. Like, I gave up on this season already. That's basically what he said, which is just ridiculous. So.
Yeah, I feel like you can maybe, and I mean maybe, get away with that if like you're a Kansas. Okay, you have that persona, and like half your team is riddled with injuries. Yeah. Like you show up and your starting 5 is like your 3rd, 7th, 8th, 11th, and 12th guy because you just have nothing left. You're like, unfortunately, we just kind of had to pack it in a month ago. We have nothing left. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, not 3-point dogs to Gonzaga.
That's just insane. Yeah.
All right, most disappointing team. I went with Auburn here, kind of the easy pick here. You can't lose to Yale. Yale shouldn't have even been in the game. They barely beat Brown, who was not a good team. They only had one player that made more than 1 3 the entire game, and one of your starters gets kicked out in the first 3 minutes for Auburn. Just incredibly disappointing.
Yeah. So I thought about them, but I actually think at the end of the day, the most disappointing team has to be Kentucky. We said it on the show, and I think everyone agreed in America too. They had maybe the easiest road. Yeah. By far, it was Sweet 16. But even an Elite 8, and you didn't even get out of the first round. The next staggering stat, which I didn't realize how bad it was, we had mentioned it being bad. Calipari has won 1 NCAA tournament game since 2019. Jesus. Okay, that's fine. You've had some bad luck. You've lost a lot. You're turning into the Kansas of the 2000s.
Yeah.
What I find to be unacceptable, you have won 1 SEC tournament game since 2019.
Wow.
How is that possible?
Yeah, I don't
you
know.
Get buys in that tournament and play dog shit teams that you've beat twice.
Yeah.
And you still can't get a win. Yeah. That is disgusting at all levels. Big Blue Nation should not want to be associated with him. And dare I say, I think college basketball has bypassed Calipari And the things that me and you talked about 2 years ago on this show with NIL and how we thought it was going to ruin basketball potentially, I think it's done the opposite.
Yep.
I think it has ruined what everyone thought basketball would be. And Oakland was a perfect example of that. They had 4 guys that were 24 years old, and Calipari rolled out 3 starters that were 18.
And what in the world happened to Reed Shepherd? He looked scared. He literally looked scared that entire game.
Did you hear the press conference after?
I didn't hear no.
Calipari said that the team was nervous. And
Well,
everyone's like, oh, yeah, they're 18 years old. These are all Americans.
Yes,
They have played on ESPN 100 times. They have played in front of big crowds since they were 15 years old.
Yeah.
Get some gall to you, son.
Like, he's probably going to win Freshman of the Year.
He's
like,
probably going to be a top 15 pick and hope to God he goes to freaking Charlotte where no one watches basketball.
He played 26 minutes in an elimination game, shot 1 of 5. Yeah, 5 total shots, 1 for 3 from 3, had 4 assists, 4 turnovers, 3 fouls. Like, what was Reed Shepherd
Did you see
doing?
they kept scanning or spanning over to his dad?
Yeah.
I don't think his dad wanted to be there anymore.
No.
You could tell he had zero interest in being there.
Uh-huh.
I think his mother was making the dad stay.
And their other top 10 pick, Dillingham, he was terrible, but he gets to skate because of how bad Reed Shepherd was. So.
I don't. This isn't the show for it, but I could probably talk for 30 minutes about just how bad that team was.
Yeah.
And you nailed it at the top too. Calipari. At what point did you think maybe, I don't know, you should figure out what to run on offense? They're running a zone.
Yeah.
You have 3 NBA shooters. You can't find a way to get somebody open? Or, I don't know, make them play defense.
Yeah.
It's insane to me that they were doing highlights after that game. Guys just standing straight up, off balance.
It was all standing. Yeah.
Not even trying to contest the lane. Like, it was a masterclass on how to not play defense.
Yep, they just passed it around. Like, when they were going against the zone, they were just passing it around to the end of the shot clock. Then somebody would go, like, Reeves would go 1-on-1. So
they have a 7-2 guy flash the middle, wide open 3 every time. No one would flash the middle. It was insane.
All right, we'll go from most disappointing team to maybe something even worse. What was the most boring game that you watched?
Oh, snap. You have boring game. I have boring team, which is fine. I'll do the same thing. Most boring team. And I think it's no hate on them. It's just your games are boring. Yeah. Because you kept winning by 50 points, and that is Purdue.
Yeah.
Purdue was just so boring to watch. None of their games were ever close. They clearly were playing a different game than everyone else. Zach Edey is a cheat code. And yes, Kyle, I know I put the tweet out there, and I put it out there as a nice little Easter egg. Wanted to see if you'd find it. Congratulations, you found it.
Yeah.
But their games were so immensely boring.
Yeah, they really were boring. I went with the more like literal of like, what game did I watch? And I'm like, I don't care how this ends. This is just absolutely terrible to watch. And it was Texas versus Colorado State. Like, Texas led by 10 the entire game. The final score was 56-44. So if you're up by 10 the entire game and you only score 56 points, that means the other team is absolutely terrible.
Go ahead.
I just said Texas made 1-3 the entire game and still won by double digits. There was 31 turnovers. A. Smith was awful. This was just a terrible game. No team played even somewhat well. It was just so boring.
So I can actually agree with that. I had forgotten until you just said that I actually watched 15 minutes of that game and decided to watch something else.
Yeah. It was.
That's how boring it was. I was like, I don't think I can watch this. It was so obvious. Texas was winning that game within 3 minutes of starting. Yeah, Colorado State pulled a Colorado State on us. They looked awesome against Virginia, which that's not hard to do, and then just came back with an absolute clunker of a game.
Yeah, we all got really lucky that at some point during that game, there was always at least 2 other games on, at one point 3 other games on. Yeah. So you didn't have to focus in on Texas, but if you did, for like me for a little bit, it was terrible.
Can we also talk about who schedules these games?
Yeah, I don't know.
We talked about it on Saturday. They put, for the standalone game, they do Arizona Dayton.
Yeah.
Couldn't be a worse matchup to have us as a standalone. Then they hit us on the back end on fucking Sunday night.
Yeah.
With San Diego State and whoever dog shit team they played. I couldn't even watch it. I couldn't stay awake. I watched maybe 2 minutes of that game. Find a way to hide them. I don't know. Well, we already know San Diego State's terrible to watch anyway.
Yeah. And what are we doing? We figured out Thursday and Friday schedule to be absolutely perfect. And I get why Saturday you want all your stuff in prime time, but Sunday, can we please get more games on earlier so that we're not ending a game at past midnight in the central time
Seriously,
zone?
can we not think of, like, the NFL has figured it out, take their blueprint. Let's do the primetime games if you want on Saturday, whatever. People will have to go do shit, I guess, during the day, whatever.
Yeah.
Sunday game should start at like 10:30.
Yeah, yeah, and you can still like vary them so where you're not having two games end at the same time or anything. You can still have
Yes.
like an hour gap. But my goodness, that game started way too late. Like, I didn't get to see a second of it basically.
It should be like anywhere from like, it should go from 10:30 to 8.
Mhm.
Last game finishes like 9:45. It's
Yeah.
great.
Uh-huh.
An awesome time.
In West Coast, that's still like 7 o'clock. Like 6:45. Like they're fine with that, you know.
Yeah, they don't
So
watch basketball anyway, so
yeah,
who cares?
exactly. All right, so couple more here. Team you were most wrong about. I'll go here first because you already said everything I was going to. I had Clemson. I picked them to lose in the first round. I bet again on Baylor in the second round. I took Baylor live in that game. I was just wrong about Clemson. Completely wrong about them.
Okay, I put BYU, and I definitely was wrong about how much I love the Mountain West.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
BYU the most. I had a future on them to make the Final Four early in the year. All the metrics I thought still pointed them to winning basketball games, and it was all for naught. Just so terribly wrong about those Mormons.
All right, what team were you the most right about?
Okay, I definitely was right about Oregon.
Yeah.
People I know were laughing at that episode when I threw Oregon out. They should have won that game against Creighton.
Yeah.
Hit your free throws, dumbass. I honestly, I've said that for 5 years. Make your free throws. They're free. Like, I don't know how you miss your free throws. Oregon's in Sweet 16 otherwise. And then for anyone that watched last episode, I'm sorry, I have to toot my own horn, and you're going to be like, that doesn't make any sense. I said before we started picking that the SEC stunk. People were overvaluing them way too much. And even I caught myself at one point doing the damn bracket. I was like, I can't do that. I have way too many SEC teams because I knew they weren't good. And I freaking nailed it. They're not good. Tennessee, I don't think is even that good. They barely beat a shit dog Texas team.
I was about to say they barely held on to a bad game against Texas. So.
The SEC's trash. So I'm giving myself credit. Give me my flowers. If you don't believe me, go back to the last episode. It's the first thing I say before we even pick the team.
Mm-hmm. That's true. So this is a team that you were always on, like, about being right about this team. But I feel like the last 2 or 3 weeks, and especially with all my brackets, I really faded this team, Kansas. They should have lost in that collapse to Stanford. That was an easy win. You had them plus 8.5 if you took Stanford. And then they were absolutely destroyed by Gonzaga. That was the easiest minus 3.5 ever. And then, of course, Bill Self, like you mentioned, he basically confirmed that they were a dead team that was looking like to the future. Absolutely terrible end of the season. They were so easy to bet against in the March. So I was definitely right about that, and not a team that I was right about, but something that I want to remember for next year. Player props. I nailed them all weekend, and it's because if you just know the styles of all these teams, the odds makers aren't doing enough research on these early games because not a lot of people are making prop bets. You can get like a really easy player points over because they're just basing it off what he averages. They're not basing it off he's playing Alabama or Grand Canyon or some team that runs a bunch. So I have absolutely just crushed it. I don't think that'll remain as easy moving forward because the odds makers will dive into it. But so easy this last weekend.
Yeah, that was something you remember last year we talked about where rebounds was the big one. They were always off on rebounds. By the time you get to like the Elite Eight, the Final Four, those numbers are so jacked up, even way beyond people's averages. Like remember Wilson for Kansas last year?
Yeah.
He averaged like 7.5 rebounds. His prop would be like 11.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the? He's having an awesome game to get to 11, and that's the prop you're giving me?
Yeah. And that's the thing is nobody goes into these player props thinking, I'm going to bet some unders here. Everyone's going with the overs.
No, yeah, exactly.
All right, let's move it on to the Sweet 16 now. We got some lines, we got some games, but let's start with Thursday. Clemson versus Arizona. Just a real quick thought. This is out in LA. Arizona's 6.5 point favorite, over under 151.5. We don't have to lock anything in here right now, but who do you like just initially? Do you like any lines initially?
Yeah, so this is what I was going to say. I'm going to do some rapid fire leans. I think you got to come back for the picks. Learned, maybe look at data. The eye test doesn't work in March. So, leaning Arizona, obviously, but Clemson, interesting enough. you got to kind of respect them. If anything, though, I'm probably going to lean the most towards an under because I think Clemson's going to try to slow that game down immensely.
Yeah, I actually agree completely with both of those. I would, if I had to pick somebody, I'd pick Arizona in this, but I'm going to lean towards the under as well. Clemson, the ACC teams, they just do not run the ball, go up and down that much. They only scored 72 points against Baylor, and that was with great shooting. So I actually really like the under here because Arizona, their offense, like we just saw against Dayton, they can go through some issues. So
Oh
I
yeah.
think the under here too. All right, the next game is San Diego State versus UConn in Boston. UConn 10.5 point favorites over under 135.5. I don't like anything about this right now.
Mhm.
Obviously, if you had to pick a team, you're going to pick UConn just to win. But I think, I don't know. I don't have really any lean here because I don't like the under because I know UConn can score 80 themselves. What do you think? What do you think here?
I think Connecticut boat races them.
Boat racism?
I
Okay.
don't think it's going to be close because the problem is San Diego State always feasts on playing their style of ball. Connecticut is the 315th team in tempo. Like they'll play slow with you and they're way more talented. I
Yeah.
think that they're just better at what San Diego State's going to try to do.
Yeah. I agree. I completely agree. They're a much better version of San Diego
Yeah, I
State.
mean, the only way that San Diego State wins that game is if Ladayan, his big ass, scores like 35 points,
And
and
he has done that. So
he has. But you think about what San Diego State did last year, right? They feasted on fast paced teams that didn't know what to do because they were
yeah.
controlling the ball, and they had all that senior leadership. They knew how to manage it. Like you're playing yourself, but
Yeah.
UConn's better.
Yeah. Better at everything about it. Next one up, we have Alabama versus North Carolina in LA as well. North Carolina 4.5 point favorites over under a nice 173 and a
That's
half.
just a psychopath number.
I know you bet on UNC to make the Final Four. Do you like them to take down Alabama
I
here?
actually hate this game. I hate this
Okay.
game. This is where I will dive into a prop probably, and I'm probably looking at RJ Davis, like you just said. They'll probably make his prop around like 19 and a half, and I wouldn't be shocked if he scores 30 because of how
Yeah.
fast Alabama runs. And North Carolina, people forget, they used to be the Alabama of college basketball. They're
Mhm.
not afraid to run.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually really like North Carolina in this one. They are not scared to run the ball. Like they do put like that is a style of North Carolina. Oh, but just about the only team in the ACC that does run. And so I actually like North Carolina here. I'll try to get it at a better number than 4.5. But if I had to pick one, it'll be then minus the
Mhm.
4.5.
Mhm.
Then to round out Thursday, we have Illinois versus Iowa State and Boston. Iowa State's a 1.5 point favorite, over under 146.5. Right now I can't bet against Illinois. They have just been incredibly hot. They've won, I think, 7 straight games against the spread. So I'll take Illinois as a dog, but I'll just go with the money line here.
Yeah, Illinois has found themselves now as the best offense in the country.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this. Iowa State is wonderful. This is what always happens to them. They run into a
Yeah.
team that just when you don't score the basketball, you can't win the game. And
Yeah.
Iowa State has fallen from grace a bit with their defense. I wasn't as impressed with them over the tournament. I thought they should have won by more.
Yeah, I
Houston was
agree.
more impressive, honestly. Like they were more crippling with their defense. I'm
Mhm.
scared about that game. I don't really want Illinois to win the game is the problem, but I feel like Iowa State's gonna have to win this game like 51-47.
Yeah, it's gonna have to be
And
really
Illinois will
sharp.
drive this game up, especially sharp. Like this game's gonna fall in the 70s. And I think that lends better to Illinois.
Yeah. All right, let's move it to Friday, where we start off with North Carolina State versus Marquette in Dallas. Marquette is 6.5 point favorites, over under 150.5. And initially, I really liked Marquette, but I'm actually more that I've thought about it. I really like the over here. I think North
Oh yeah.
Carolina State, if they get off to a lead, that'll lead to a very high scoring game. But Marquette, they can do it on their own. They can score 90 in this game, and then you don't need much from North Carolina State. So I'm leaning towards the over in this one.
So when I actually did the research, NC State and Colorado are very similar teams, actually. I mean, the
Okay.
level of talent is about the same-ish. Obviously, Colorado has just like that one level a bit more, but
Yeah.
pace, offense, defense, relatively the same. We saw what happened with them, Marquette. I think the over is the play. North Carolina State is live though.
Yeah.
They're live with Big Sexy, man. That moves,
Yeah.
guy starts moving, you got to watch out. And they do not have a matchup for him.
No, I agree with that. North Carolina State. I mean, there's no team hotter in the nation right now than them, too. They've won what 7 games in the last
Seven, yes.
9 days or something like that. So, all right, we'll move it to later on Friday. Gonzaga versus Purdue in Detroit. Currently, Purdue is 5.5 point favorites. Over under 154.5. I've not been able to identify their over unders in their first 2 games,
Yep.
but I've watched a lot of Purdue basketball this season. I'm taking the under here because if Gonzaga gets up, they're going to try to slow, or if Purdue gets up, they'll slow the
Yeah.
game down. And if Gonzaga gets up, I can see this game not having a bunch of fouls at the end and not driving up to score.
Yeah. I feel like a mild epiphany about this game about a week ago when I started going through the brackets. I think Gonzaga wins this game.
Uh-oh.
I
Okay.
hate it. I don't like it because it's just so scary because I thought Purdue should have won this game earlier in the year by like 20, the way those two teams looked. Gonzaga's just got something about them right now. I don't know if like Mark
That's
Few quit
true.
drinking or what happened, but they've got something about them.
Yeah. In recent games, like they played against Purdue earlier this season, it was 73-63. Against St. Mary's, none of their games ever got high scoring. They all were in the 60s and 70s. So I just think this leads to a much shorter number than 154. So that's why I feel better about taking the under than picking a side.
I thought the same about Purdue and Utah State, but that
I
kind of
know.
screwed me over.
Yeah, that got out of hand quick. Duke versus Houston in Dallas. Houston's 3.5-point favorites, over under 133.5. I mean, obviously, I know what I want to go here. I won't be betting any side on this. I'll try to find a player prop, but who do you like here?
It's an over game, and I think Duke is live. I don't like Houston when they have to play someone that has depth on offense.
Yeah.
You think about the teams that they've struggled with, it's always when there's more than one guy that can score. That is Duke. The problem is will they score?
Yeah.
So I think Duke is a terrible matchup for Houston. I think they're live. I think the over is an easy number here, though, because Duke's going to be efficient with their shooters. Houston's going to have to keep pace a little bit. This is one of those games I think falls more in like the 65 to 75 range, which will get you over the number.
Yeah, that's the way I would lean to, is the over here. I will say, if you haven't been watching a ton of Duke, they have now basically made Filipkowski their third offensive guy. They go to Roach and McCain first, and it has really changed their style of play.
Yep.
All right, last game, Friday night, Creighton versus Tennessee in Detroit. Tennessee currently 2.5-point favorites, over under 143.5. Very difficult game here because you got completely different styles. I really thought I would like Tennessee in this matchup when filling out my brackets, but I'm starting to lean Creighton here.
Yeah, this one is a smell the cheese for me. This is like way too easy of an over. What am I missing? Tennessee doesn't play defense. Creighton can definitely score 75 a game, no problem. How is that number so low?
It's got to be pace, right? Like Creighton.
But if you think about that, how many teams have been paced and we're getting these crazy scores?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a sucker play. Everyone's gonna start taking the overs because there was like a record over amount of games.
Really
I'm gonna like smell the cheese guy on this. I think the over is there, but I think it's something you gotta look at. You just gotta think, pray on it, follow your gut.
All right, real quick here. Looking at the new live odds for the 16 teams to have a chance to win the championship. Did you like any of the new odds? Who's your pick if you had to pick, like based on the odds, not just going with UConn, but based on the odds?
No, I know. I think they're all kind of gross, honestly. Like if you're gonna just do something, you might as well just do Gonzaga at 2,500. Honestly.
Yeah, I like that. The one I picked out was Marquette at plus 1,600, just because they could potentially avoid all the one seeds until the final. But I also, if you're just going to take the long shot, go with Illinois because they're playing incredibly hot right now. But they obviously have the hardest road of anyone, probably.
Yeah.
All right. Well, enjoy the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 this weekend. And go follow us on Twitter. I'm at Kyle Cliffy. He's at Mingo Made One. All of our picks are out there. I think we put over 100 picks combined out this last weekend. So we won you tons of money if you took our advice. Best of luck, and we'll talk to you next week.
Love you guys.